Call this meeting to order. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to advise everyone that Councillor Ross will not be attending the meeting this morning. Also, I'd like to welcome our Regional Director, Director Russell, to our Committee of the Whole meeting. Good morning, Mr. Director Russell. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, first off, to adopt the agenda, a recommendation to adopt the agenda as presented. I have two amendments to make to the agenda this morning. Item 3C, the Grand Forks Disc Club delegation will not be present this morning. They will be presenting at the July Committee of the Whole. Also, the other amendment would be to item section 13A to go in camera resolution to include section 91A. Personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. May I have a mover to adopt the amendments, please? Councillor Thompson. All those in favor for the amendment? Okay. May I have a mover for the amended agenda as presented? Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right. Also, may I remind item 2B, there is an in-camera meeting directly following the Committee of the Whole meeting. Okay, moving along to 3A, register petitions and delegations. Our first would be the Grand Forks Parades Committee. The request is for the support of Canada Day 150 celebration. The recommendation is the Committee of the Whole receives for information a presentation from the Grand Forks Parades Committee regarding support for Canada Day 150 celebration. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Butler. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Councillors. My name is Beverly Ossachoff. I'm here to represent the Grand Forks Parades Committee and ask for your kind assistance in support of this historic event. As you know, 150 is a big reason to celebrate. We've used this opportunity to encourage people to come forward and celebrate 150 years of diversity in our community. And toward that end, why we're here to addressing you this morning is we'd like to request your assistance in terms of helping us with liability insurance for this event. We'd like to put in place $2 million worth of liability. The parade basically takes about 20 minutes from its start till its finish, perhaps a little longer this year because we are anticipating more event or more floats and participants than normal. But that's why I've approached you this morning. As you know, we're a committee of, historically we've been 2 people. This year we have 2 new volunteers. So we're 100% volunteers. We do this through our own labor of love and our enjoyment for bringing people in the community together. And if council sees fit to support us with some temporary liability insurance, then we can guarantee that we can move forward with this important community event.
I have a quick question. Has this been brought forward to staff, to our staff, in regards to the monetary amount, etc.?
When I did my application to present as a delegation, I did list those things. As you may remember, Mr. Mayor, at that time, we had originally approached the city with a few other pieces of information and other requests. At the time, we had planned to do the parade down Central Avenue, but Mr. Gates advised me that it was unlikely that the city could come up with enough staff support to help us with barricades and that sort of thing. We also asked for your permission to use the vacant lot that's on the west side of Dick Bartlett Park for additional marshalling grounds, which of course the staff did acknowledge that we could do that. Additionally, we also asked that the washrooms in that area be opened up for public use because we start assembling quite early, and as you know, there's no washrooms immediately nearby except for the ones at Dick Bartlett Park, and you know, it's coffee hour. So, but in answer to your question, no, I suppose that's where I've.
Only because the recommendation of the resolution is a bit broad.
Thank you, sir.
To our CEO.
Your Worship, I did some checking in on the insurance piece, and it's about between $100 to $250, and it's dependent on the length of the parade. So if council is interested in doing that, we do have the policy for community support that allows us to support small monetary values. And so if council would like to do that and direct us, we could get the application put forward.
Okay. So we're looking at a cap of maximum 300, let's say, should that arise.
Yeah, when I talked to the insurance broker, Your Worship, he said he didn't want his toes held to the fire. He said between 100 to 250. Now, if the parade is maybe a little bit longer, it could be 300 and that. So it's not huge. Okay. So we're not looking at a huge dollar amount.
Okay. Councilor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I'd certainly be in favor of supporting this in any way that we can. It's just a great event. And it's unfortunate that you're not going to be able to go down Central, because I think that that would be an awesome thing too, but it sounds like maybe that's not going to be possible.
Thank you, Councilor. Perhaps another year.
Councilor Brock.
According to this, it said that it's the highway department that requires that you have the 2 million coverage. But if it's not going down Central, I guess through the mayor to staff, I know like when we had the Fall Fair Parade or Legion, isn't that covered under our existing insurance? So wouldn't this be covered the same way if they're not on the main highway?
To our CEO.
Your Worship, on the application here, it showed that they were going down the highway, so that is why we checked on the insurance. If they're not going down the highway, you're right, Councillor Krog, is that it's no different than going, like if you're going down our own streets and that, it's covered under our municipal insurance.
Similar to the Santa Claus parade, etc.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So it negates any extra cost.
If they're not using the highway pieces, then yes, we wouldn't need to have that.
No, in fact, we'll be using the 68th Avenue route that we used last council.
So we basically have the assurance you're not going down the highway.
Exactly.
So then that cost factor is eliminated and that request is eliminated.
Okay, great. And now, and we've been able to ascertain that you do have that in place for us. And
Yeah.
terrific. So
Seems to be all in order.
thank you all very much. That was short and efficient. Have a terrific day, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you Canada Day.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
All those in favor to receive? Anyone opposed? So carried. Thank you again. All right, the next item is the Boundary Museum Society Quarterly Report Presentation. Recommendation Committee to hold receives for information the quarterly report presentation from the Boundary Museum Society. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Your Worship and City Councilors. My name is Cher Wires. I extend our condolences or our apology from our President, Lee Jarosov. She underwent surgery on Wednesday, so I'm making the presentation today on behalf of the Boundary Museum. And I am the Manager of Operations for the organization. So I believe you have it on your slide presentation. Under the fee-for-service agreement we have with the City of Grand Forks, we're required to report to you on a quarterly basis. So today, I'm providing some information on what has happened, primarily right now in our first 5 months. Our visitor stats, if you could change that page. Our visitor stats from January to May 31st. We saw 665 visitors in 2016. We're up a little bit, 1.9% to 671, so that's nice to see a continual growth. The Boundary Museum's Board of Directors for 2017-2018, we had our May 13th AGM. There were 16 members in good standing and 2 guests in attendance for the afternoon meeting. We have a new board. There was 4 new members, 4 reappointed members to the board. Lee DeRosoff is our president. Bob McTavish has taken the position as vice president. Kathy Rush is our treasurer. Monica Kosil is secretary. Laura Loader is a director. Dave Dietrich is a director, and Sam Semenoff. So moving along to our marketing that we've looked after for the 2017 season. We have print advertising appearing in the Kettle Valley Express publication, and of course the Grand Forks Gazette official vacation guide, and also the Grand Forks map. The associate membership, we have an associate membership. This is a new venture for us with the Washington State Historical Society. That gives us a website listing and free workshops offered throughout the year. I actually attended one of their workshops down in Wenatchee last October. We're also a member of the Upper Columbia Association of Museums. And this organization has been around for a long, long time. And they have a circle tour map of all the museums around central Washington, Okanagan Valley, and the border towns in Canada. It hasn't been published since 2003, and that's how I stumbled upon them, because the location they had on their map was our old location on 5th Street. So with that engagement last fall, they are redoing their map. We had a meeting in Ritzville just in April, and they're proceeding with some new steps towards marketing the museums in this region. So it's a nice partnership, and I can say that we've actually had a visitor already from Ritzville at the museum who popped on museums. Our revenue generators, well, we still have high hopes to see the MRDT, which is the Municipal Regional District Tax Application coming through. We did sign an agreement with the Regional District, an interim to move forward with the provincial government and Destination BC. Cindy Elvis is the lady who has been looking after this application, and in speaking with her last week, she has to revisit the application forms again for the provincial government, because some of our hotels have changed ownership. So that paperwork has to be brought up to date. And hopefully we'll be part of that implementation as far as the delivery organization for the administration of the MRDT. Venue rentals. Community organizations and the public schools provide additional revenue to the museum for tours, facility rentals, and community programming, such as our Aboriginal program. Now, Joan Hart was a researcher that we had on staff over the winter months, and she looks after our Aboriginal curriculum program with the public school system. She works closely with the 2 Aboriginal coordinators through the elementary schools. We just completed the Archival Association of British Columbia just completed a free workshop. You'll see that this report may be in the present, because we did submit this for June the 12th, and so it was done in May. So we did have a workshop. We're a member of the Archival Association of British Columbia, and as a member, they travel around the province delivering free workshops. So we were fortunate enough to see participants from the Slocan Valley. Bronwyn was here from Selkirk College. She looks after their records there at the Castlegar campus, at the Doukhobor Discovery Center, and Castlegar and Greenwood Museums. Our community programming includes this year the Heritage Milling Society, so we'll once again be partnering with the Heritage Milling Society to open the flour mill for July and August. And we actually have a big tour coming up this Thursday with the early school, touring both the museum and the flour mill. Canada Summer Jobs. We received approval for 2 summer students, and for a total of $6,658 in funding. This year, we were only, the maximum that they're going with Canada Summer Job apparently is 9 weeks. Last year we had 10 weeks, the year before that we had 12 weeks, and before that you used to see 14 weeks. Now we're down to 9 weeks for each of the students. So we had 3 students last year, so this is a significant drop for us in our federal government funding for 2017. But we did pick up a Young Canada Works student as well for collection management project that we're running. And that fund will provide us with $4,455, and that is 12 weeks that we have that young man with us. The only change over last year, of course, is this hourly wage. We boosted it to $15 an hour for Young Canada Works to make it a little more attractive. So we were successful. So our total funding from the federal government for our 3 Canada summer students is $11,113, and that's down from $15,063 over last year. We were successful in a Phoenix Foundation of the Boundary Country Communities grant application last February to purchase a new projector, power light projector system, and a wall-mounted motorized projection screen. So we're just going through the purchasing right now with a local. We supporting local business, so we're purchasing it locally. The total cost of the equipment is $1,800, but we did see funding from the USCC Kitchen Ladies, who donated $500, and our local Grand Forks Elks Lodge 493 donated $300 for this project. They also hold their monthly meetings, so this is one of their rental fees that they pay to us. Community programming. Well, we like to call it community programming. We've been asked, you know, what do you have for the children? What are your kids' programs for the summer? We identified ourselves as community, inclusive of everyone. So along with our Aboriginal education program, we also have our bread making program in the summertime every Thursday, and that starts June 22nd with the school tour that is arriving on Thursday. And we also have a working blacksmith on site. Brian is exceptional with the children, and he comes up with some very creative woodwork and ironwork that they're working on. We have a new project that we're working with the Volunteer Fire Department to showcase their 5 fully restored antique fire and the apparatus collection right at the museum. We anticipate developing a 60-foot extension to our existing 40-foot Black Hawk livery exhibition building that we have on site. We did make 2 grant applications to Canada BC 150. That was unsuccessful, and Co-op Community Spaces. That was not successful either. So we're now looking at a Canada Cultural Spaces Fund through the federal government. We're also in discussions with the regional district Area D Director Rolly Russell, who's here today. And I didn't recognize you at the beginning. And yeah, so we're moving forward. I do have a little press release that we have out, and we're meeting with the volunteer firefighters on Thursday again to move forward with this project. So this is our 2017-2018 project. For our financials, I believe you all have our financials attached for that first 5 months. The income and expense statement for the 5 months. The net loss is actually, if you could just correct that on your sheets, is $3,444.31. It is correct on the financial statement, the income statement attached. As I said, we had submitted this the end of May, before our bookkeeper had actually completed her reconciliation. So the loss that we are reflecting here for the first 5 months is actually a write-off of $2,222 for the 2016 Grand Forks MAP project for advertisers who did not pay their invoices, as well as our insurance is stated on here for the 12-month period, and it should be reflective of only the first 5 months of $1,810. So we're right on target with our budget, And in summary, we're looking forward to a very busy summer. We're researching for additional funding opportunities to meet project expectations and increasing maintenance costs at the Boundary Museum. That is one of our major expenses now, is maintaining the 6-acre parcel there, as well as our archival service downstairs. So I hope you've had an opportunity to go down and visit Sue and her volunteers. The 6-acre parcel is really a testament to the community and what really can be accomplished when strong partnerships and local governments come together in a community. So thank you. And in conclusion, I just want you to recommend from City Council to accept our report this morning.
Any questions? Councillor Crocker?
Yeah, on the construction project, a couple of grants were unsuccessful. Is there a guesstimate on if the new one may be successful? And the second part is, if it is successful, will that cover the cost of the project, or do we have to do some fundraising? Or
Yes, we're always fundraising, Councillor Crock. Very good question. No, one of the Canada Cultural grant is up to $250,000, and that's through Heritage Canada. So no, it won't cover all of the costs. But we've also in discussion with the regional district. We can partner on some of these costs. Also, we do have a strong volunteer base of in-kind contributions from our community for labor and materials, and we do have some backup funds in our project account.
And on the same subject, through you to staff, I don't know, I've never heard of it before, but is there any kind of funding that would be available through, say, a National Firefighters Campaign?
And that's the meeting we're having with the volunteer fire department on Thursday. They're also looking for opportunities for funding. So we haven't had, since last fall, we haven't had a meeting with the board and their representatives. Some of them have been away. So now that we're strategically moving forward with it, yes, they're going to advise us where they can go looking to. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a partnership.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They'll have access to their equipment anytime they want it. They still retain ownership. We're just providing the venue and the opportunity for the public to be able to see it.
Quick question, what is the actual cost of this project?
We're estimating about $350,000.
Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Thompson?
I just wanted to say thank you for the excellent report. I'm sorry to hear that Lee's fell out. But you guys, the museum has come a long, long way, and you're doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Well, it's an exceptional partnership we have with the USCC and the Doukhobor community, and as well as a number of organizations that hold their meetings up there monthly.
Okay, so unless there's any other questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor to proceed? Is anyone opposed? So carried. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
And I'll leave these for you for later.
All right, moving along to 3C has been eliminated. So we're moving on to item 4, which is regional topics for discussion with our Area D representative, Director Russell. Again, good morning, and go ahead, Director Russell. As soon as I let go of the button.
Thank you, and thanks again for having me. I think this is a really neat process, and I think that, I hear more and more people referring to the fact that we do this as an interesting kind of best practice sort of potential. So it's a pleasure to be here. I have 9 things that I wanted to touch on. I'll go fairly quickly through them. And as a little reminder, my sense of the process here is that I'm here to give you updates on things that I either am chair or vice chair of, or that are unique to rural Grand Forks, as opposed to anything that's generic to the regional district, right? Just to clarify that. The first piece I will give you a quick update on is our agricultural plan update and food security plan. We had the consultants in town probably about a month ago, and they were very busy. We had their all day, every day that they were here, we had them in non-stop meetings with people. And so it was a really exhausting few days, but by the end of it, we had met with, the consultants had met with a lot of different people in that whole food system chain, right, all the way from producers, whether those are market gardeners or cattle producers, all the way to the food sharing group and the food security groups and so on. So, it was a really productive few days, and now we're just getting organized with the consultants to take the next steps in terms of establishment of essentially an advisory council that will serve the boundary for recommendations on agriculture and food related issues. So that's exciting, and again, lots of work, but it was nice to actually see some tangible outcome of it. I'll just let people jump in with questions if they have it. Number 2 would be the Trails Master Plan. That has been off to a slow start. The consultants have been working, but it has been had very little public-facing part of it so far. Phase 1 is essentially to gather a bunch of the data and make some initial contact with some groups. They now, within the next couple of weeks, we should have the first meeting of the working group, which will, that working group will then be reviewing the draft of phase 1. And after phase 1, phase 2 is the public consultation proper. So after phase 1, we will then get into the conversation about what does it look like, what do we want this to be moving forward. So that's set to turn into something tangible, but so far it's been pretty abstract. Number 3 would be the watershed, Kettle River Watershed Authority. We had the first meeting of that group as under their new moniker as the Watershed Authority, and a new format in terms of it is a much bigger group now than it was in the past. And so now we have a list of nearly 30 people that sit on that table, sit at that table with the expectation that there's going to be meetings about every quarter, and there's going to be some of those meetings where some of those members won't see the need to show up. So it's not, we don't expect to see a group of 50 people sit around that table every time.
Just wondering, did the rep from council attend that meeting? Did we have because I didn't hear anything about this meeting, so I was just
No, I was absent. I had our CEO attended instead because my alternate was missing.
Sorry, I was thinking, there's a lot of people around the table. That's right. So the CEO attended in the mayor's stead, and it was a really satisfying, again, after the result of, it's been years working on this project, and it's slowly moving forward, and this was another hurdle to get past, which was really satisfying. And one of the neat accomplishments there in terms of our attendance was that the chair of the Confederated Tribes of Colville came. And so we've been in conversation with Okanagan Nations Alliance, and they've been interested and kind of peripherally involved when they can, and but we've had a bit of a challenge getting connection with the Confederated Tribes, and the reason that really matters for me personally is that they historically would have had a lot of presence in this area, and so that was neat for him to show up, and he had some really good input at the meeting too. So that was pleasing. Number 4, we as of the meeting before last, we changed the name we'll change the structure a little bit of the Boundary Economic Development Committee, and now it is the Boundary Community Development Committee. And the implication there, it sounds subtle, but is that we have historically had a boundary stakeholders committee that only meets during budgeting and meets to review all of the budgets that we share, for example, as the City of Grand Forks and Rural Grand Forks, but as well all of the other boundary services that are shared by different partners, but we only meet at budget time. And so the change, the semantic change in the name for that committee, for the Boundary Economic Development Committee, is that now that it contains, that would provide the avenue to have conversations about any of those other services that we share in a formal committee structure without having to call a meeting if we only have one, let's say animal control. We've got something we need to talk about as stakeholders in that service. We would have that under the banner of the Boundary Community Development Committee, because it would now be the placeholder for all those services that as of yet haven't had a regular committee home sort of thing, and give us a bit of an easier avenue to get into the conversations about some of those pieces that don't fit tidily under the banner of Boundary Economic Development. We have been working for the last couple of years really on trying to vision with Boundary Economic Development, so recognizing now that's a one part of the umbrella of Boundary Community Development. How do we maximize the value of that economic development arm for our communities? And it's been a slow process. One of the pieces we've been really working with is trying to identify whether it makes more sense to have an advisory table, so have fewer meetings of elected officials as Boundary Economic Development, and have a table of advisors that represent our communities and represent the actual business, tourism, those sorts of things in our communities, advising Boundary Economic Development on what decisions they should be making, which I as rural Grand Forks, certainly think is a good model for effective economic development. So we're trying to brainstorm and explore that a little bit, and by the fall we should have a bit of a more concrete vision of what that might look like. There's one more piece of that I wanted to mention. I don't remember what it is right now. So one of the avenues that we realize is one of the challenges with Boundary Economic Development is the notion that, so as rural Grand Forks, so really there's three main contributors to that service. It's Area E, that's West Boundary, it's the City of Grand Forks, and it's rural Grand Forks. And so we've struggled a little bit with the tension between regional projects and local projects or sub-regional projects. And so one of the things that I've mentioned in the past that we were trying to work out, which we have rolled forward now, is we have designed it so that there is a separate, for example, there is a big white, there is a pool in the budget, an item in the budget that is specifically for big white projects. And that then makes it a clear line of sight. So when we're making a decision, we recognize that $12,000 is for projects that Big White is interested in pursuing. Likewise, we have a pool of money of, right now it's only $12,000 because it's a bit of a trial, but that pool of $12,000 is for City of Grand Forks and rural Grand Forks projects. So essentially, the City of Grand Forks delegate and rural Grand Forks delegate have to come to some agreement on what those funds ought to be dedicated to, and then that would be an incentive for economic development for us at that regional service for sub-regional projects, essentially. And I noticed, a conversation again that I think we've kind of peripherally had is that conversation about disc golf and the potential for that area behind Extra Foods, parcel Z, I think it is, I'm not sure, as a potential good site for that. I noticed you had a delegation that was supposed to be here today, and you'll see in July. That might be a great opportunity, and I would certainly be supportive of that as a use of that, for example, that $12,000 to say, here, it's clearly a joint economic development opportunity. Let's earmark those funds to help move that process along. So I recognize you haven't heard the delegation yet, but maybe keep that in mind when you do hear that delegation next week. So that's a good, again, regional development project, which I'm certainly keen on seeing move ahead. So that was number 5 as well, the disc golf piece. Any questions on economic development? Number 6 would be just a brief update. So we've applied for a rural dividend for the smaller project pool to explore the notion of developing, as rural Grand Forks, developing the Hardy Mountain Doukhobor Village site and what that development plan should look like. We heard a bunch from our public kind of consultations previously, a bunch of interesting ideas, so we're really pretty creative about how we could try to develop that site into a bit of a celebration of heritage as well as a draw for tourism. And so a lot of ideas that revolve around agriculture and those pieces on that site, as well as the cultural elements, ranging from things like setting up some cabins so that it could serve as kind of a place, an accommodation place where we could partner with educational opportunities around food, for example, and production and preparation of food as well. Which, you know, so anyway, but the challenge is we don't know how to move forward, so that's what that work dividend application, hopefully, if we are successful, well, one way or another, we're going to move forward with that plan. Hopefully we'll get that funding to help us develop what that kind of phased development plan will be. Using something like the Mirror Center in Castlegar, you know, there's one end of the spectrum in terms of what that site could potentially develop into.
So would you be restoring or completing the restoration of the house?
Yes, so one of the interesting pieces that's come to light is my understanding previously was that we needed to be restoring the interior of the house in the same style as it was originally, and that was I would say in large part the reason why the project was aborted, basically, was that the cost of doing that. So there was a lot of great work that went into, for example, trying to recreate the plaster and hair mix that they were using for the mudding essentially on the inside and so on. But at the same time, that made the project prohibitively expensive. And so that would be part of what the development plan would look at is how much we can follow that path versus how much we might want to develop the interior so that it's, you know, for example, so that it's accessible. So, you know, where that balance actually falls. The requirement that the exterior of the building absolutely would be that's a requirement of our heritage bylaw, is that has to be developed or restored the way that it was. Yeah. But the interior is a different conversation that we have yet to fully identify. But that was a big part of why we struggled, I think, in terms of why the Land Conservancy sort of struggled in terms of being able to pay for the restoration project, because it just kept getting more and more expensive.
Gentlemen.
I wanted to ask about that. How far along did they get with the interior restoration?
So I'm not the expert on how far exactly they got along, but I know that they had some success. That it took them, I think, quite a lot of time to develop the actual wall surfacing and so on, and so they've started doing that. Some of the rooms have a significant part of that completed, and then, for example, another set of the rooms or some of the larger rooms, they were going through a process, I think, of undoing some of the renovations that had happened since the beginning and trying to recreate it back into the style it would have been originally. And so there were some beams and so on that were removed, and that was part of the challenge, was the architect's requirements in terms of what she was mandating they do in terms of that recreation. So
follow on to that, I remember when the resto actually became a reno and they did changes that created the problems that you're talking about. One of the problems that they actually encountered was they redone the roof, and that caused the humidity inside to go sky high. So I'm curious, the state it's in right now, is there any monitoring on that so it doesn't degrade while nobody's there, that type of thing?
So part of the challenge is that for Esmeralda Grand Forks, in terms of making decisions to move forward with that, it's not clear how much a lot of those things will cost us to develop. And so that's part of the notion, is that we need to have a good phased kind of development plan to say, okay, the bare bones in order to maintain the building is this much. In order to develop it enough to be able to utilize it is this much. And in order to achieve some kind of more creative vision is going to be this much.
So does anybody go up there and check on a regular basis?
No.
Okay.
Not at this point. I mean, there have been checks, but there's not regular inspections or anything.
Okay, thank you.
When I was with the Museum Society at that time, the idea was to have it classified as a heritage site, and therefore that was why it was vital that it be restored, not renovated.
Yeah.
And that was under the TLC, so that they were very stringent on that. We locally weren't as as tied into restoring to the original
Yeah.
as the TLC was. And TLC went belly up.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. There's the distinction between the national heritage
Yeah.
registry versus sub-national.
Yeah, I've been to a fair amount of historical sites, and it is a balance between reality and the renovations and stuff like that. But I've seen some awesome examples of here's your authentic original room with the plaster exactly as it was, and then they'll leave a wall exposed to show lath and plaster, and then in another room it will be drywalled to look the same but not with the same cost and stuff, so that the visitors get that authentic experience, but the money saving and the overall feasibility is way better if you can combine the two.
I know that the artifacts that were taken out of there were sorted, and because Mr. Gritchen, whose museum it was, he was also a bit of a garage sailor, so we went through a process of filtering out what was garage, what was basically nothing to do with history, what was pioneered, and what was Duke-born. And I know that a lot of that ended up, some of it ended up anyways within the purview and the stewardship of the Museum Society, but I'm not sure how much ended up in the sea can that was there. I'm not sure where all that is right now.
It's all inventoried on site. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is that I don't know if it would be any interest to you at all, but Cable 10 Community TV went through there when it was still Peter Gritchen's museum and recorded a video out of that somewhere in my collection of tapes from that organization. I do have that, so if you wanted to be able to add that as part of the offering so people can see what it used to be like when it was in private hands, you can have that.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so on to number 7, which would be a bit of just a kind of general conversation. I know that you, the City of Grand Forks, applied for a couple strategic priorities funds proposals, and I was asked to write letters of support on behalf of rural Grand Forks, which I'm happy to do. Just a little comment, you know, I think that this process here is a step in the direction of better collaboration and partnerships. I like Cher's comment about strong partnerships and collaboration among local government as you know, part of what we're going to have to leverage in order to make this productive. And so something like the floodwater application is certainly something I'm happy to see come forward from the city, and it's a sort of thing that I'd be happy to talk more about. And we don't know how these projects come up at the last minute or the rush to get our applications in. But it'd be great to try to figure out a good kind of two-way avenue to throw out these ideas, which I think is what this is here. So again, thanks. I like this process. Number 8, I would just very briefly, the regional district has struggled, as the mayor knows, with the notion of strategic planning for a regional district and what that actually looks like and how that is delivered. And so we've been working a lot on trying to refine that process to be more productive for us, essentially. And we recognize that really getting more into work plan, like doing a bit more of almost like a business planning, work planning part of the process is more value to us than the strategic planning, because the strategic planning ends up at such a high level. But just as a heads up, so this autumn we will be getting into that strategic planning session in October or something like that. And that's where we'll be really identifying, okay, what do we want the regional district to do for us as local government? And so, and basically that comes down to how do we allocate staff time? And so that's a good process that is hopefully will be productive. Finally, you you all know how much I care about local government associations as a real good tool for local government to actually get traction at different levels of decision makers, whether that's provincial or federal. The UBCM is coming up before too long, and within the next probably month and a half or so, you and Forks, for example, everybody will have to get their requests in, I assume. I don't think there's a deadline yet in terms of ministerial meetings and who we want to go sit down with. And that's another point where I think that if we sit down together, if there are issues that are key to Grand Forks that make a difference, to have a rural Grand Forks sitting there as well, or vice versa. I think it's really valuable for those ministers to when they see, instead of a bunch of communities coming and sitting down and asking for money, when they see independently, when they see us come and ask for assistance on issues or action on issues collaboratively, I think it makes a huge difference in terms of how much they pay attention to us. So it would be great to start that conversation as soon as we can and figure out if there are pieces that we want to collaborate on those conversations with. So
Absolutely, strength in numbers.
yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Russell. Do we have any questions? The lady in the third row.
Gloria, I was just wondering, Roby, is the old Duke of War site tourable now, or is it being open to tour? I toured it years ago, and yeah, it was interesting.
We'll get there.
Okay.
So unless there are any other questions, Councillor Thompson.
Just a comment, Lily, and Laura Saddington, and maybe Les can confirm. I believe Dave Dietrich was very involved in this,
Yes.
and he would give an excellent resource.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Pauline McCorda.
and Pauline, okay.
Okay, thank you once again. Pleasure having you here, and wonderful to have that collaborative association and partnership with the region.
Thank you.
We don't have a motion on this, we don't need one, it's just topic for discussion. So we're going to move on to presentations from staff. First, from our Corporate Administrative Department, Subject Matter Emergency Operations Center, EOC, Activation Wage Reimbursement. The recommendation is that the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council to receive the report regarding the EOC wage reimbursement for city employees and proposed Policy 617, Emergency Operations Center, EOC, Activation Wage Reimbursement, and refers the policy to the June 26, 2017 regular meeting for approval consideration. A mover, please. Councillor Butler. Councillor Butler, discussion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, I'm just wondering if the unions had input on this, and if, it seems fine to me, but if there's anything, any input that they had?
To our CEO.
Your Worship, basically, part of the provincial piece is that part that you seem to be union part is it follows with the collective agreement. And the only part with the that is a little bit different is that there's no language in the collective that speaks to bank time. And that was just one piece that we wanted to make sure that was clear in the policy, that nobody can bank time, same as managers, they would have to get paid out. And so that's one of the stipulations through the province.
Councillor Butler.
Sorry, so my question actually was, has the union okayed this? I don't want to approve something and then have, feedback afterwards.
No direct okaying, Your Worship. It's understood by the union as already that this is not bank time, and so it's already understood by them that they don't get to bank their time.
And actually, the approval is occurring on the 26th of June. This is just to receive the report. We're not going to be approving it today. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our CAO. This policy is in accordance with what is recommended by the Emergency Operations Province of BC. Am I correct in that assumption?
Your Worship, this is the best practices. This policy basically reflects the same policy as the regional district has, and because of the way we run our EOCs, where the regional district is our leader in that, is that we're just mirror reflecting on what their policies say. things.
Okay, all those in favor to receive and refer, anyone opposed? So carried. Next item is the RFP Policy 1207, temporary use of city property or facility. From our Deputy Manager of Operations, our recommendation is the Committee of the Whole recommends the Council to adopt Policy 1207, use of city property or facilities at the July 17, 2017 regular meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have no issues with the policy itself. It's just that it's very similar to Policy 114, temporary commercial use of public property, and I'm just wondering if there's any way that they could be combined for efficiency's sake.
To our Deputy Manager of Operations, would you like to respond on that, please?
Mr. Mayor, they have two distinct focuses. The Policy 114 is for commercial operations, whereas Policy 1207, by and large, guides our event requests and all of the other non-commercial uses of public property. So it is two different ways of considering what we might provide to the requester or what they might feel comfortable asking for.
Councillor Hammett and Councillor Tripp.
Well, I was just going to say one's a nonprofit, but I'm just curious, is this for their fundraising dinner that they're going to have on July 17th? This is not the fall fair.
I'm not aware of that. Just not aware of that. Councillor, does anybody have the answer to that question?
I'm not sure where you're finding it.
Yeah, you're on the right topic.
Oh, the fall fair. Oh, events like the fall fair or the farmer's market.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, through to staff. I was looking at Policy 1203, which is use of city park, and comparing the two, there's really there's no similarity really at all. And I just was wondering if this Policy 1203 had been referenced at all when you were making up this new policy, or if elements of this policy like Policy 1203, should be included in the new policy that you're doing for events for the use of city property.
To our Deputy Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Policy 1207 is a broad policy, and there isn't a plan right now to rescind the more specific policies for the parks. So really what 1207 speaks to is what we do as an event request procedure and what type of information we can feel like we should be asking for or to cover off our due diligence for insurance purposes and just to provide general guidance. So while there are more specific policy statements in 1203 and I believe one other parks policy in terms of that venue, this is for all of our venues.
So this is more of a broader spectrum, whereas the other ones are more intricate and refer specifically to certain, like parks, etc.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, just one more question on that then. Number 10 on that use of city park, that's Policy 1203. It says the city reserves the right to refuse use of the park for events where there is potential for damage, vandalism, that kind of thing. I don't think there was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there was any language like that in this more generic policy. I'm just wondering, would it be advantageous to put maybe some language like that out of this policy into that one, just to give it a little bit more, give us a little bit more safety?
Absolutely, being able to refuse use is a key part of it, and it isn't implicit, but we could make it explicit that not every request is approved, depending on the context. At the top of the policy, there are two clauses that speak to that point, where it's not an unreasonable burden on the city's resources within policy, and that if there is a significant amount of resources required, then it has to be for the public good rather than just because it's there and they want to use it.
But
So a rider could be put on this policy 1207, which will refer back to the intricate policies, which would trump policy 1207.
Absolutely, and I'd be more than happy to include that for July 17th meeting. That is the wish of council.
That would be this evening. No, that's July, sorry, my apologies. Okay, Councillor Tripp, do you have anything else?
No, I just think it possibly might benefit us to have just a little bit more sort of definite language around that kind of thing. Because if someone were to come and say, well, there's nothing in there that says we can't use the park.
Well, that's where the other ones would trump it, as I stated. So that will be a reference to those.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I still find that as an outsider looking at these policies, wanting to come and do commercial work or events, it just gets way too confusing having 4 separate policies, James Donaldson, City Park, commercial use, non-commercial use. I'd like to see them all rolled into one so that people know that there's one place to go to look up the information that they need. If they read one policy and then they're told, oh, well, you didn't see this policy over here, it just gets confusing for other people. We on council and in the city might understand because we've taken the time to really review and go through them, but I don't know if an outsider wanting to start an event or rent commercial space would maybe get confused by all the different policies separately and in different sections.
The language, I agree, the language might have to be a bit refined so that, again, one doesn't overlap into the other, which in turn could cause confusion. Because then there could be a misinterpretation due to the fact that there's specific policies on where does it start, where does it stop. Councillor Crock.
It makes sense to include them all in the same folio or folder, but it doesn't make sense to combine them because James Donaldson and City Park are like night and day.
Just
when
different
it comes.
subsections.
Yeah, so basically if it's all in the same place, but those are
As a reference, and to reference them in the same folder, so to speak, might be a good concept to try to achieve.
But you need them all.
Yeah, you need them all, exactly. Okay, so unless we have any other... Councillor Thompson.
Through you to Deputy Manager of Operations, are you clear on what council is asking?
So now you're totally confused.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to hear a clear request from council for perhaps renaming policy 114 to include it into the same section as the other facility use policies. As well as my understanding is that I will make some amendments to the current craft policy if council chooses to recommend that it come forward to July 17th meeting.
What you said.
Councillor Butler.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we already have a motion on the floor, so I won't put forward another one, but it sounds like our manager has a good understanding of what he's heard here today, so I don't think we would need a motion. We can just send him with that task, and it will come back in July. Is that fair for everyone?
That's fine. Okay. So all those in favor? With, of course, with the changes requested. Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, item C, memo. CARIP report, June 2017, from again our Deputy Manager of Operations. The recommendation is the Committee of the Whole receives for information a memorandum from the Deputy Manager of Operations regarding the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program public report. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Any questions? All those in favor? Councillor Butler.
Just one quick question, because we had been discussing this at a previous meeting with the solar option that was brought forward to us, and our CAO was going to be, I believe, either meeting with someone from that group or arranging a meeting, and I'm just wondering how that project has gone, considering we were going to be using this funding for it.
To our CEO.
Yes, Your Worship, Mr. Swan was in town with Patricia Danielle and another gentleman. And they met with one of our members of staff, and they went and did basically an inventory of our pieces. And so there's going to be a conversation likely within the next week or so with him to see what is going to best work for us and what we can do to move forward. So there'll be some recommendations
you. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Item D, memo, Community Satisfaction Survey, June 2017. Again, from our Deputy Manager of Operations, recommendation the Committee of the Whole receives for information a memorandum from the Deputy Manager of Operations regarding the Citizens Satisfaction Survey update. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I really like how this is presented. And, you know, it looks like people aren't totally upset with what we're doing, that they like the services, they want to keep them. Nobody wants to reduce, or very, very few want to reduce spending. So I think this is an excellent tool that we can use in our future budgeting, and staff can use it for work consideration and the like. So thank you for this.
Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay. Our Manager of Development and Engineering, subject matter is RFP, the Agricultural Land Commission application for subdivision on 75th Avenue. The recommendation is the Committee of the Whole recommends the Council to pass a resolution to support the application for subdivision of Lot 2, District 520, Plan 5090, accept Plan 5210, 8653, 11971, 12795, 13376, 19535, 21583, 23494, and 38138, excluding portions outlined red on plans B 7375 and E 198, located north of 75th Avenue at 25th Street, and direct staff to complete the local government report which forms part of the ALC application process. Move. Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Opposed? Excuse me. Go ahead. Your CAO.
Your Worship, the other piece on this too, it's not in the resolution, but your council could do a separate resolution to refer to the July 17th regular meeting for a decision.
So are you requesting to refer this, or to pass as a recommendation to pass the resolution to support it?
Your Worship, council couldn't make that decision at the committee of the whole, there's no decision, so that's why we have to refer it over to a regular meeting.
So we should make an amendment to that.
Well, I would just pass, or put forward another resolution that this be referred to the July 17th regular meeting of council for a decision.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Item F, monthly highlight reports from department managers. Subject matter, staff request for council to receive the monthly activity reports from department managers. Recommendation is the Committee of the Whole receives the monthly activity reports from department managers. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor, unless there's any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. No reports for discussion, there's no bylaws, information, correspondence, main items.
Sorry.
Councillor Butler?
I just had a quick question. I should have asked it during the reports, but I just wanted an update on the expo sign, where we're at with that.
Who would be best for that? Our deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because of the size of the new signs, we're putting them out for geotechnical engineering and structural engineering.
Councillor Butler?
Yeah, I was just really hoping we could get a weed eater or something out there before Canada Day just to clean it up a bit. If that's possible, if council as well, I guess, to direct staff to ask the manager of operations to even just get our summer students out there to clean it up a bit.
So noted. Thank you.
Do we need a motion for that? Or?
No, I don't think so. It's a housekeeping item. Councillor Tripp and Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I should have probably asked this question too. I just was wondering if we could get an update on the 2nd Street situation over there.
With the water?
With the water.
Again, to our CEO or to our deputy manager, whichever would like to answer that.
Yeah, actually, Your Worship, I don't know, do you know, have any, okay, go ahead.
Your deputy manager.
Mr. Mayor, we dug a test pit in the parking lot next to the site to look at the groundwater table, and it is still about 8 inches above the level of the pipe, so we're still waiting for it to drop.
So it's inoperable.
At this point, without great expense, we'd have to de-water the area.
Is there any subsequent danger to anything? Is there any danger to anything in regards to the water?
At this point, we still believe it's coming up through the valve casing and that it is not affecting the road.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could get an update on the Wayfarer signage that was put through at the community open house that made the decision on the sign designs.
Go ahead. Manager, deputy manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The waiver signage, we have 2 concrete pads that are being poured. One at the overway parking lot, one at Gyro. We have the quotes in for the signs to go up in terms of who we're going to get printed by. And we have the metal bracketing that is been fabricated at the works area.
Okay.
So in other words, it's all underway, it's moving along.
Absolutely it is.
The anticipated timelines?
That is the million-dollar question. We're moving step by step. The next step is to look at the actual signs themselves in terms of getting them printed. So
I guess timelines are hard to coordinate when it's all subbed out, right?
The EOC activities and the flooding definitely put a brake on a few projects.
Councillor Hammond.
So does that include the directional signage as well that was going on the street corners? There was about 3, I think, with arrows pointing for RV parking this way, or pickleball court that way, or city parking this way.
Phase 1 will, or phase 2 rather, which is the smaller signage, will include some of those signs as we can this year. It will not include the installation of any additional posts just because of the budget that we have, but it will include some of the signs on posts that are already in place in appropriate locations. And so we have gone out and done a preliminary design of which signs would go at which locations right now. But that's where that piece is at.
All right. Now move on to question period from the public. So I'll open up the floor to the public. Would there be any questions? Hearing none, we move on to 13, in-camera resolution. Chief Administrative Officer in camera, immediately following the committee of the whole meeting, council will hold an in-camera meeting. The recommendation is, just get my amendment here. My apologies, I lost my amendment sheet. There it is. All right. Recommendation the council convene an in-camera meeting as outlined under Section 90 of the Community Charter to discuss matters in a closed meeting which are subject to Section 91C, labor relations or other employees relations. Also 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. Further be it resolved that persons other than members, officers, or other persons to whom council may deem necessary to conduct city business will be excluded from the in-camera meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I should have done this during question period, but I just wanted to welcome the new, I believe it's the new executive director for the chamber that's here today. Just happy to see her on board and wish her well in her new position.
Can we know her name?
Would you like to take it?
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Kendra Begg, and I was hired just very recently, so I'm only about 2 weeks into the position of the Executive Director for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm really excited for the opportunity. I have caught myself up historically, not only in the last year, but also in the last couple of months and some of the things that are there. So I'm still in the process of going through and fact-checking at this point to make sure that I have everything in place and know exactly where we're at as far as filings and AGMs, those things, and just getting all that into place. I'd be happy to present on that at a future meeting. I'm not prepared for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, right, may I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? This meeting is adjourned.